Viserys Targaryen grew up in exile, carrying the weight of a fallen dynasty. From a young age, he was fully aware of Daenerys' true identity as his sister and the last hope of House Targaryen. He constantly reminded her of their royal blood and their supposed destiny to reclaim the Iron Throne. His knowledge of her identity was never treated as a secret between them, but rather as a tool of control. Viserys used this truth to dominate Daenerys emotionally, reinforcing that her role was to serve his ambitions. He believed himself to be the rightful king and saw her as a means to an end. Despite knowing her importance, Viserys underestimated Daenerys' strength and growth. While he clung to the past, she began to evolve into a leader in her own right. His inability to adapt ultimately led to his downfall. In the end, Viserys' knowledge did not grant him power, but instead highlighted his weakness. He knew exactly who Daenerys was, yet failed to understand what she would become. Illyrio Mopatis was one of the first allies to shelter Daenerys and Viserys in exile. As a powerful and wealthy figure, he was fully aware of Daenerys' lineage and the political value she carried as a Targaryen. He played a crucial role in arranging her marriage to Khal Drogo, seeing it as a strategic move to eventually restore Targaryen power. His knowledge of her identity was tied to long-term political schemes rather than personal loyalty. Illyrio viewed Daenerys as a piece in a much larger game. While he provided protection and resources, his actions were always guided by calculated interests rather than genuine care. Even so, his early support helped set Daenerys on the path that would define her journey. Without his involvement, her rise to power might never have begun. Jorah Mormont initially knew Daenerys' identity as part of his mission to spy on her. Tasked with reporting her movements, he was fully aware that she was a Targaryen claimant to the throne. Over time, however, his relationship with Daenerys changed. What began as duty evolved into deep loyalty and admiration. He continued to protect her, not because of her name, but because of who she was becoming. Jorah witnessed her transformation from a frightened girl into a powerful leader. His knowledge of her identity became secondary to his belief in her strength and vision. Despite his early betrayal, Jorah remained one of her most devoted supporters. He understood both her past and her potential better than almost anyone else. Barristan Selmy served the Targaryen family long before their fall, making him one of the few who truly understood their legacy. When he joined Daenerys, he already knew exactly who she was and what her name represented. His loyalty to her was rooted in honor and memory. Having served her father, he saw in Daenerys a chance to restore dignity to the Targaryen name. He believed she could be different from those who came before her. Barristan became both a protector and a mentor, guiding her with wisdom shaped by years of experience. He offered perspective on her family's past while encouraging her to forge her own path. His presence reinforced the legitimacy of her claim. More than that, he helped shape her into a ruler who could inspire loyalty rather than fear. Varys, the Master of Whispers, was one of the most informed individuals in all of Game of Thrones, and naturally, he knew about Daenerys Targaryen long before she became a major force in the world. Through his vast intelligence network, he followed her life in exile, fully aware that she was one of the last surviving Targaryens and a potential claimant to the Iron Throne. To Varys, this knowledge was not just information. It was a variable in a much larger political equation. What set Varys apart from others who knew her secret was his motivation. He was not driven by loyalty to a family name, personal ambition, or emotional attachment. Instead, he consistently claimed to serve the realm, meaning the common people who suffered under poor rulers. Because of this, his interest in Daenerys was always conditional. He did not support her simply because she was a Targaryen, but because he believed she might become a better alternative to the rulers currently in power. When Daenerys began to rise, gaining armies and dragons, Varys saw both hope and risk. He chose to support her more directly, even leaving Westeros to join her cause. However, his support was never blind. He carefully observed her decisions, especially how she used her power. Her sense of justice, combined with moments of ruthlessness, created a tension that Varys could not ignore. Knowing her family history, particularly the legacy of the Mad King, made him even more cautious. In the later stages of the story, Varys's fears began to grow stronger. He started to question whether Daenerys would truly break the wheel, or simply become another tyrant. This internal conflict led him to make one of the most dangerous choices of his life, acting against her when he believed the realm was at risk. His knowledge of her identity ultimately brought him to a moral crossroads. For Varys, knowing who she was never enough. What mattered was whether she deserved to rule. Tyrion Lannister entered the story of Daenerys Targaryen later than many others, but his understanding of her significance developed quickly. As one of the sharpest minds in Westeros, Tyrion immediately recognized that a Targaryen with dragons was not just another political player, but a force capable of reshaping the entire world. Her identity carried both symbolic and practical power, and he knew aligning with her could change the course of history. Unlike Varys, Tyrion's support for Daenerys had a more personal dimension. After becoming disillusioned with his own family and fleeing Westeros, he was searching for a ruler worth believing in. In Daenerys, he saw someone who spoke about justice, liberation, and a new kind of leadership. Her identity as a Targaryen gave her legitimacy, but it was her vision that earned his loyalty. He chose to serve her not just as an advisor, but as someone who genuinely hoped she would succeed. As her hand, Tyrion played a crucial role in shaping her decisions, especially in the political and strategic arenas. He constantly tried to balance her impulses, encouraging diplomacy over destruction. However, this was not always successful. Daenerys' growing reliance on fear and created tension between them. Tyrion's awareness of her lineage, particularly the darker aspects of Targaryen history, made him increasingly uneasy, as he began to see parallels that worried him. In the end, Tyrion's journey with Daenerys became one of hope challenged by reality. He continued to believe in her longer than many others, even as evidence mounted that she might not be the ruler he imagined. His knowledge of who she was gave him faith at the beginning, but also forced him to confront difficult truths as her actions escalated. Tyrion did not just know her secret, he lived with the consequences of believing in it. As Daenerys' campaign moved closer to Westeros, Tyrion Lannister found himself under increasing pressure. The expectations placed on him as Hand of the Queen were immense, and every decision carried consequences not only for Daenerys, but for the entire realm. His belief in her was still strong, but reality was proving far more complex than the ideals they once discussed. Tyrion began to notice that Daenerys' sense of justice was becoming more absolute and less forgiving. While she still spoke of breaking chains and creating a better world, her methods were growing harsher. For Tyrion, who valued strategy and measured responses, this shift was deeply troubling. He understood that fear could win wars, but he also knew it could destroy the very future she wanted to build. His internal conflict grew as he tried to reconcile the woman he believed in with the ruler she was becoming. Tyrion continued to advise caution, urging her to consider mercy and long-term stability over immediate displays of power. However, his influence seemed to weaken as Daenerys relied more on her own instincts and sense of destiny. Despite his doubts, Tyrion did not abandon her easily. Loyalty, hope, and a sense of responsibility kept him by her side. He had chosen to believe in her vision, and walking away would mean accepting that he had been wrong. This made his position even more painful, as he watched events unfold in ways he could no longer fully support. Ultimately, Tyrion's journey with Daenerys became a lesson in the dangers of belief without limits. Knowing who she was, a Targaryen with immense power, was only the beginning. What mattered was how that power was used, and Tyrion was forced to confront the reality that even the most promising leaders can take a dark path.